Okay. So today we're going to be taking a look at the assassination of John F. Kennedy. Here you'll see a New York Times article comes out the next day. Kennedy is killed by a sniper as he rides in a car in Dallas. Johnson sworn in on his plane. Um, that's kind of where I hope to go today, from the John F. Kennedy administration to the Johnson administration. Unlike most switches of administrations, this isn't going to be dealt with an election. It's going to be through the assassination. So you will see here the assassination occurred in Dallas on November 22nd, 1963. And I'm going to digress now on why Dallas. Well, in 1960, John F. Kennedy chose to make LBJ his running mate. LBJ, being from Dallas, a Southerner, only strengthened the ticket um, of the once solid South that had been a little bit more vulnerable. If you remember the 1948 election with the Dixiecrats kind of breaking away from the Democratic Party, it isn't surprising that in 1964, going for re-election, that John F. Kennedy feels extremely vulnerable. And there are whole segments of Texas that were definitely leaning to the right and not leaning to the left. Cities that they've talked about death threats, and there's Klan meetings and anti-Kennedy. So this is him going to Dallas. And the crazy part is he was told specifically, don't go to Dallas. They may hate you the most. So in a Kennedy way, in a Kennedy confident way, a bold way, said, well, then I'm going to Dallas because if they hate me, I'm going to make them love me. How do you not love me? And you can see this is him. This is Governor Connolly, shown top and bottom. They are going to drive through Dallas in an open air limo, even though, of course, they were told not to. Because what Kennedy thought was his greatest selling point was Kennedy. He thought that the young people are going to love me. They're going to love my wife. There's Jackie Kennedy there. It's a very bold statement that he went there in 1963, even though there's a chance that Texas was going to be a lost state for him politically. So a little bit about how it went down. After they landed at the airport, eventually they get to Dallas. This is going to be Dallas right here, downtown. He's going to drive down this road where I believe they were either supposed to go straight or make a right. They were told to not make a left. Watch what happens when you make a left. When you make a left down this road, there is a lot of view from the rooftop and the windows looking down at a good, easy angle. And as you're driving through, you're vulnerable from behind this fencing, behind the tree line, in the windows, from all different angles. Too many angles, too much fear that this might end poorly. Kennedy says no, because look at this open air area. Kennedy wanted this to be a picnic event. He wanted to drive right down here through what's been nicknamed the grassy knoll. So there would be moms and families and kids all along the line. They'd be having picnic baskets on top of their blankets, and they would be there all day. It's like a beautiful, perfect photo op. So it's not surprising that Kennedy, going to Dallas when he was told not to, in an open air limo when he was told not to, and following the route that he's choosing when he's told not to. Well, shots will ring out, and supposedly, based off of research, the Warren Commission of the 1960s, that the shots came from up here, came down, and struck Kennedy. One in the throat, one missing, one hitting his head and killing him. The assassin worked up here. So what is this? This is the Texas Book Depository. I like this little story. I'm going to drink some coffee. Today's coffee is the pineapple mug. There's nothing wrong with the pineapple mug. It's by Tian Shan Stoneware. Tian Shan is a mountain chain in China. Yeah, take that to the bank. So over here, you'll see the Texas Book Depository. In Texas, they tend to have one book that the entire state adopts. So in Pennsylvania, we use a different state than Wilson, our neighbor, and Reading, our other neighbor, and Mifflin, of course. We all use different textbooks, especially for history. In Texas, it's a little bit different. The entire state of Texas uses the same book. And because of that, they need a book depository. Inside the book depository, obviously, are books, but you can sit there and manipulate those books to make, yes, everybody, hiding places. Well, the assailant worked there, Lee Harvey Oswald. Now, Lee Harvey Oswald, shown here when he was younger, shown here, this is his mugshot when he got arrested. Lee Harvey Oswald has a background that we could take a few days to study. Things that I'd like to tell you was that he was trained, a Marine, I believe, to be a sharpshooter, and he was pretty good at it. So it's not surprising that he was able to get 3 shots off in basically a minute. He was pro-Castro. He was pro-communist, living in communist Russia for a while. In fact, I think the story goes he was so annoying and radical in the factory that he was working in Russia recently in the 50s that Russia kicked him out. So if Russia doesn't want you and you're forced back to the United States, I think that says something about your radicalism. And there is evidence that we were tracing him upon his return. And after, whatever, a year of following him and keeping up with him, we declared him not to be a threat. And obviously, everybody's rolling their eyes right now because he was more than a threat. So some people feel that his pro-Castro, pro-communist views makes him hate the President of the United States, let alone the President of the United States, who had gone through the Bay of Pigs invasion, who had wanted to assassinate Fidel Castro, and of course the Cuban Missile Crisis. So after he takes this rifle, shoots Kennedy 3 times, 2 hit, 1 kills, he runs. And it's while he's running, he does have a pistol that a police officer finds him and says, why is he running through the streets of Dallas? He shoots the police officer dead. So now we have 2 people dead. He eventually goes to a movie theater for gentlemen, okay, some sort of porn movie theater, where he didn't pay for his ticket. And when he didn't pay for his ticket, and they hear things on the radio, the people that were working the movie theater said, this is a shady character. And he was eventually arrested. This is shown him in his mugshot. He admits to nothing. He says he was a patsy, meaning, this is a quote of his, that he was being set up by somebody else, bigger entities than him. And there are bigger entities. Besides communists, there is a lot of people who were in the mafia, in the mob, who hated not John Kennedy, but his Attorney General, Robert Kennedy. Because in the late 50s, now early 60s, organized crime, very powerful, in control a lot of workers' unions, for example. Robert Kennedy, the Attorney General, was laying the smackdown on it. And because of that, some people feel that this might have been a mob mafia hit. This could have been a communist hit. This could have been a lone assailant who was really upset hit. And of course, there are people who say this was because LBJ wanted to be president. I'm not one for conspiracy theories, so go watch your conspiracy theories on YouTube. Now, this is where it really becomes a conspiracy. Okay? Drink again. Pineapple mug. Tian Shan. Chinese mountain chain. So, they're moving Lee Harvey Oswald from the police department to a jail. And they're doing this at night, but it's publicized or it's known. And that's where this guy right here, Jack Ruby, pushes through the crowd with a gun in his hand and shoots Lee Harvey Oswald dead. Lee Harvey Oswald and John F. Kennedy both die at the same hospital, obviously within a few days of each other. Now, Jack Ruby, this is where the mob mafia thing comes in. Jack Ruby was a down on the luck gentleman club owner. And there are people out there who say that he owed money to the wrong seedy characters and they were holding that against him and kind of making him go take out Lee Harvey Oswald. Because as soon as Jack Ruby dies, or Jack Ruby does this, and we have Lee Harvey Oswald dying, then it's kind of leaving the world of a lone gunman and it's entering this world of a conspiracy. Jack Ruby eventually dies in jail a few years later. So within hours of the assassination of John F. Kennedy by Lee Harvey Oswald, this is back at Love Air Force Base. This is on Air Force One, and this is Vice President Lyndon Baines Johnson, blanketed here by the former First Lady. Think about how brave she was being in this, and you remember that this is the image that's over on my wall in my classroom. Think about how brave she is here. She wanted to be by the side of LBJ to show America that there is a smooth transfer of power. In America, we do have assassinations and we do have chaos. But in America, we accept the rule of law, which was the transition from John F. Kennedy to LBJ, his vice president, who he did run against in 1960 for the Democratic nomination. Here's just a political cartoon. You can sit here for a second. All right. I think we probably know who this is. This is a certain memorial down in Washington, D.C. And we could see that there's a person with his head down. Now you have to sit there and say, why is this person have his hands in his head in his hands? Why is he sad? Why is he sobbing? What is the similarity between this man, President Lincoln, and of course, President Kennedy? So let's back up just one slide. Here's my finishing thoughts, because I could be here all day. I could talk about the magic bullet theory and things like that. You could ask me about that in class if we ever see each other again. The one thing I want to bring up here that's pretty powerful to me is how powerful LBJ becomes because John F. Kennedy was assassinated. You guys hit upon this in our recent debates that we did in class, but just imagine. LBJ was a liberal who wanted to pass his agenda. And all he had to do is say, we are following through on President Kennedy's agenda. We need to stick to our former leader and do the right thing for the country. And yeah, a lot of people, even of his party who weren't for him, will eventually support the Civil Rights Act, the Voting Rights Act, and to a degree, some of the Great Society liberal policies that he will have in the mid-60s are because of the popularity that Kennedy had and that the office of the president has after the assassination. All right. So I just wanted to give you a little heads up. Hopefully this will all transition well for you, and I hope you're all being safe and good. Take care.